Some people will never break into your life. They won't need to, because you will open the door for them with kindness, with guilt, with good intentions. And by the time you realize what's happening, you're not helping anymore. You're leaking time, leaking peace, leaking confidence, leaking pieces of yourself to people who keep asking for more. And the frightening part? Most of them won't ask in a cruel way. They won't demand. They won't threaten. They'll ask politely, softly, reasonably. They'll ask like they deserve it. And if you're a good person, if you're thoughtful, loyal, compassionate, you'll be tempted to give it again and again and again, until one day you wake up tired for a reason you cannot explain. Not tired because life is hard, tired because too many people have been feeding on parts of you that should have been protected. Stoicism teaches something most people spend years trying to avoid. Not everyone who asks deserves access. Not every request is innocent. Not every need is your responsibility, and not every act of giving is virtuous. Sometimes, giving too much is not kindness, it is self-betrayal. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 things you should never give people, even if they ask nicely. And if you understand these 5 things, you will stop living like an open door and start living like a man or a woman with a gate, calm, clear, and no longer available for emotional trespassing. Stay with me until the end, because the 5th one is where most people lose themselves completely and call it love. Let's begin.
Never give people immediate access to you. The first thing you should never give people is immediate access. Not because you're arrogant, not because you think you're better than anyone, but because constant access destroys value. And worse, it destroys peace. There's a reason your phone buzzing can ruin a perfectly good moment. A reason one message can pull you out of your center. A reason some people never actually enter the room violently. They arrive through notifications, favors, interruptions, and quick questions. Can I call you for a second? Can you do me a favor? Are you busy? It'll only take a minute. That phrase, "it'll only take a minute," has stolen more lives than people realize. Because it's never just the minute, it's the mental shift, it's the broken concentration, it's the emotional residue after. It's the fact that your mind leaves your own priorities and starts orbiting someone else's urgency. This is how people lose themselves, not in one dramatic collapse, but in tiny daily surrenders. Read that again in your mind. You do not lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself in tiny daily surrenders. That's how it happens. A message here, a favor there, a conversation you didn't have the energy for, an obligation you said yes to because saying no felt rude. And over time, you become easy to reach, but hard to respect, because people naturally value what is intentional, not what is constantly available. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people still haven't learned. If you do not guard your attention, the world will gladly spend it for you. And people do this all the time without even realizing it. Some are not malicious, they're just careless. They assume that because you respond quickly, you're always available. Because you've helped before, you should help now. Because you are calm, you can handle one more thing. But calm people are often the most overused, because everyone assumes they can take a little more from them. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. If people can reach you anytime, they will start believing they own a part of your time. And once someone feels entitled to your time, they slowly begin to feel entitled to your energy, your focus, your emotional presence. This is why some of the most peaceful people become secretly resentful. They don't hate people, they hate the version of themselves that is always reachable. Stoicism is not about isolating yourself from humanity. It is about choosing when the world gets access to you. That's power. Real power is not in responding to everything. It is in deciding what deserves a response. There's a difference. A Stoic understands that every time you immediately react, you train your nervous system to live in obedience to the external world. But every time you pause, every time you choose your response, you reclaim authority over your life. That pause matters. That silence matters. That moment where you do not answer right away, that is not coldness, that is self-command. And watch what happens when you stop being instantly available. The people who respect you will respect your space. The people who only benefited from your access will become irritated. That irritation is information. Don't ignore it. Because one of the fastest ways to discover who values you is to become slightly less convenient. You do not need to disappear. You do not need to become distant, dramatic, or hard. You simply need to stop acting like your life is public property. You are allowed to miss a call. You are allowed to reply later. You are allowed to say, "I can't do that today." You are allowed to protect your mornings, your evenings, your weekends, your mind. Your time is not a waiting room for other people's emergencies. It is your life. And every time you hand it away carelessly, you are not being generous. You are teaching the world that your peace can be interrupted on demand. Never give people immediate access to you. Access should be earned, not assumed.
Number 2, never give people explanations they have not earned. This one is subtle and dangerous because many people don't just want your answer, they want your explanation. Why? Because explanations create openings. You say no, then they ask why. Then you explain. Then they challenge the explanation. Then you defend it. Then somehow, your personal decision becomes a public debate. Have you noticed that? How quickly a simple boundary turns into a courtroom? You say, "I'm not available." And suddenly it becomes, "For what? Why not? Come on, it's not a big deal. You've done it before." You're overthinking it. So you can't make time for me? Now you are no longer making a decision. You are managing a reaction. And that is exactly where people lose their power. Stoicism teaches that your life does not need to be constantly translated for other people's comfort. You do not owe everyone access to your reasoning, especially when their interest is not understanding, but influence. There is a huge difference between someone seeking clarity and someone seeking leverage. Some people ask why, not because they care, but because they know the more you explain, the more likely you are to crack. Because every explanation gives them something to work with. If you say you're tired, they say, "But this will cheer you up." If you say you're focused, they say this won't take long. If you say you need space, they say you've changed. If you say you can't, they start trying to prove that you actually can. This is not conversation. This is negotiation disguised as closeness. And if you are not careful, you will spend your life explaining choices that were never up for discussion in the first place. Here is a line you need to remember. The more you explain a boundary, the more some people hear it as flexible. That's the trap. Now listen carefully. A mature person can accept your decision without needing a 10-minute speech. An entitled person cannot. That is why brief answers are powerful. Not rude, powerful. This doesn't work for me. I've decided otherwise. I'm not available. I'm keeping that private. No. Clean, calm, finished. You don't have to turn every choice into a TED Talk. Marcus Aurelius didn't spend his life trying to convince everyone that his discipline made sense. He returned to himself again and again. That is the Stoic way. Not endless justification, inner alignment. Because the truth is, when you know who you are and what matters to you, many explanations become unnecessary. You only over-explain when you are trying to prevent disapproval, or when some part of you still believes you need permission, and that is the deeper wound. A lot of people aren't exhausted because they are doing too much. They are exhausted because they are constantly translating themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. That is a miserable way to live. Imagine how much peace would return to your life if you stopped trying to make every decision sound acceptable to everyone. Imagine how much strength you would feel if you made a choice and let the discomfort of someone else's reaction remain theirs.
That is Stoicism, not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to abandon your judgment just because someone frowns at it. Some people respect your no. Some people only respect the no they cannot manipulate. Become the second kind. Not cruel, not hard, just clear. Because once you understand this, you stop giving away one of your most valuable assets, your internal authority. And when you stop explaining everything, something surprising happens. Your words gain weight, your decisions gain shape, and people start realizing that when you speak, you mean it. Never give people explanations they have not earned. A boundary is not more valid because it is more detailed.
3. Never give people the power to define who you are. This may be the most invisible theft of all, because it doesn't happen through force. It happens through repetition, labels, comments, jokes, expectations. You're too sensitive. You've always been the strong one. You're difficult. You're selfish now. You're the responsible one. You're cold. You're the problem. You're the one who always fixes things. And if you hear something enough, especially from people close to you, you begin to wear it, even if it doesn't fit. That's how people become trapped in identities they never consciously chose. One person decides you were the helper, so now you feel guilty when you rest. Another decides you were the calm one, so now you feel ashamed when you feel anger. Another decides you were selfish the moment you start protecting yourself. So now every act of self-respect feels like a crime. This is how control works in subtle relationships. Not by chains, by definitions. Because if someone can define you, they can predict you. And if they can predict you, they can manage you. Stoicism teaches that the only identity that matters is the one formed by your own character and choices, not by the opinions thrown at you by unstable minds. Epictetus said that if you want to improve, you must be willing to be misunderstood. That line is not soft. It is brutal, because most people would rather be accepted falsely than rejected truthfully. So they keep performing. They keep acting like the old version of themselves, because that version is easier for everyone else, even when it is killing them quietly. Maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you've spent years being the dependable one, the one who stays, the one who handles it, the one who doesn't complain, the one who can take a joke, the one who understands, the one who forgives. And maybe nobody ever asked whether that role was crushing you. They just kept benefiting from it. And every time you tried to step out of character, someone made sure to remind you who you were supposed to be. That's not love. That's confinement. A Stoic does not hand strangers, family, friends, or partners the right to define their character, because the opinions of others are unstable. Today they admire your discipline. Tomorrow they call it distance. Today they love your kindness. Tomorrow they exploit it. Today they praise your loyalty. Tomorrow they demand it. If your identity depends on external approval, you will shape-shift yourself to exhaustion. And the frightening part is that you can do this for years without noticing, until one day you ask yourself a question that hurts more than any insult ever could. Who am I when nobody needs something from me? That question changes everything, because it reveals whether you've built a self or just a service. Stoicism brings you back to the center. It reminds you that your worth is not determined by who approves of you, who misunderstands you, or what role makes others comfortable. Your worth is in your conduct, your restraint, your principles, your integrity when no one is clapping. Not in labels, not in projections, not in stories people tell about you because your growth inconveniences them. Listen carefully. When you outgrow the version of you that benefited everyone else, some people will call it betrayal. Let them. Growth often looks offensive to those who are profiting from your lack of boundaries. You do not have to keep shrinking to remain recognizable. You are allowed to become unfamiliar to people who only knew the version of you that was easy to use. Never give people the power to define who you are. Let them have opinions. Let them misread you. Let them simplify you if they need to, but do not carry their language into your soul. because once you begin seeing yourself through the eyes of those who do not truly see you, you stop living from truth and start performing for survival. That is not freedom, and a Stoic life is a life of freedom.
4. Never give people your inner peace to prove you care. This one destroys more strong people than almost anything else, because it often hides behind love, loyalty, and empathy. You care deeply, so when someone you love is upset, you feel responsible. When they are anxious, you absorb it. When they are angry, you carry it. When they are confused, you jump in to fix it. You start losing sleep over problems that are not yours to solve. You replay conversations. You overthink their moods. You monitor their tone. You walk on eggshells. You start managing yourself to keep them emotionally steady. And eventually, your inner life stops belonging to you. It becomes a weather system controlled by someone else's storms. That is not compassion. That is emotional captivity. Stoicism never teaches you to become heartless. It teaches you to remain rooted. There is a difference between loving someone and drowning with them. There is a difference between support and self-abandonment. And a lot of people never learn it because they were taught that sacrifice is proof of love. But if your peace must be destroyed in order for someone else to feel held, something is wrong, very wrong. Some people do not ask for your peace directly. They ask for it in disguise. They ask for endless reassurance, for constant emotional tending, for your attention every time their mood shifts, for your nervous system to become their shelter, while they never learn to build one of their own. And because you are kind, you give. Because you don't want them to feel alone. Because you remember what pain feels like. Because you know how to listen. Because you know how to carry. But here's the hard truth. If you constantly become the emotional home for people who refuse to build stability within themselves, you will eventually become homeless within yourself. That sentence matters, because many people are not burned out from work. They're burned out from absorbing the emotional weight of everyone around them. Seneca warned that the mind becomes colored by what it constantly sits beside. Think about that. If you spend enough time around panic, you start vibrating at panic. If you spend enough time around chaos, chaos starts feeling normal. If you spend enough time around guilt, manipulation, or volatility, your peace begins to feel unnatural, almost suspicious. And then something terrifying happens. You start apologizing for your calm. You start feeling guilty for your boundaries, guilty for not answering, guilty for not fixing, guilty for not staying up late to process someone else's life with you, guilty for protecting the very thing that keeps you mentally alive. That guilt is not wisdom. It is conditioning. A Stoic knows this. Your first responsibility is stewardship of your own mind, not because you're selfish, but because a disturbed mind cannot love well, lead well, think clearly, or live honorably. If someone's emotional state can constantly drag you out of yours, then you are not grounded, you are exposed. And exposure feels noble until it becomes damage. Here's the lesson. You can care deeply without becoming emotionally available for destruction. You can listen without absorbing. You can support without surrendering your nervous system. You can love without making yourself the casualty. That might sound harsh to people who are raised to believe that love means merging. It doesn't. Real love does not demand that one person stay regulated for two people forever. Real love involves responsibility, and responsibility cannot be outsourced to your kindness. So what does a Stoic do? A Stoic stays present, but separate, compassionate, but centered, available, but not consumed. That means sometimes saying, I care, but I can't carry this for you. I want to support you, but I need space too. I'm here, but I cannot keep doing this at the cost of my own peace. And yes, some people will not like that, because your exhaustion was convenient for them. Your overfunctioning helped them avoid growing. Your availability helped them avoid accountability. But your peace is not proof of selfishness. It is proof of discipline. Never give people your inner peace to prove you care.
because the people who truly care about you will never ask you to bleed internally just to reassure them externally.
5. Never give people repeated chances to hurt you. Now we arrive at the hardest one, the one that keeps people trapped for years, the one people romanticize, spiritualize, excuse. Never give people repeated chances to hurt you. One mistake? Human. Two mistakes? Possible. A pattern? That is no longer confusion. That is revelation. And yet this is where so many people abandon themselves, because they confuse forgiveness with access. They think being a good person means staying open long after the evidence has told them to close the door. They think patience is always noble, that more understanding will fix it, that one more conversation will change everything, that one more apology means one more reason to believe. But Stoicism asks a brutal question. Are you responding to who this person is, or to who you keep hoping they'll become? That question has saved lives, because hope can be beautiful, but in the wrong place, hope becomes self-destruction wearing a halo. Some people are not in your life to grow with you. They are in your life to test how long you will remain available after the warning signs are clear. And many people stay because the pain is familiar. Familiar pain is seductive. You know how it works. You know the cycle: disappointment, apology, relief, hope, repeat. That cycle can feel like closeness. It isn't. It is instability training your heart to survive on crumbs. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to look at things as they are, not as we wish them to be. That is one of the hardest disciplines in life. To stop editing people in your mind. To stop narrating their potential over their behavior. To stop giving credit for promises that have not become action. Because patterns are truth in motion. Anyone can sound sorry. Anyone can cry. Anyone can swear it will change. Anyone can speak beautifully after causing damage. But words after harm are easy. The real question is simple. Did the behavior change? Not for a day, not for a week, not while they were afraid of losing you. Did it actually change? And if the answer is no, then every extra chance you give is no longer mercy, it is permission. This is where many kind people break themselves. They keep reopening the same door to prove they are forgiving. They keep re-entering the same fire to prove they are loyal. They keep touching the same wound to prove they are strong. But strength is not staying where you are repeatedly diminished. Strength is seeing clearly and acting accordingly. Stoicism does not teach bitterness. It teaches discernment. You do not have to hate someone to limit them. You do not have to resent someone to leave. You do not have to become cruel just because you finally became clear. Some endings do not need revenge. They need acceptance. The acceptance that this person may never become safe for you. The acceptance that history is not a reason to ignore evidence. The acceptance that love without respect becomes grief. And the acceptance that sometimes the most peaceful choice is not one more conversation, but distance. Quiet distance. Final distance. Distance with no speech attached to it. Because not every lesson must be announced. Some are lived. And pay attention to what happens when you finally stop offering endless access. Some people will reflect. Others will rage. Not because you did something wrong, but because your boundaries ended a system they had grown comfortable inside. That discomfort belongs to them, not you. A Stoic does not keep reopening the gate just because someone knocks with regret. Regret is not repair. Apology is not transformation. And familiarity is not trust. Never give people repeated chances to hurt you. Forgive if you need to. Release if you can. But do not confuse inner peace with open access. You can let go of bitterness without letting them back in. That is wisdom. And sometimes, that is the first real act of self-respect you have performed in years.
So let's bring it together. There are 5 things you should never give people, even if they ask.
Never give them immediate access to you. Never give them explanations they haven't earned. Never give them the power to define who you are. Never give your inner peace to prove you care. And never give them repeated chances to hurt you. These are not rules for becoming cold. They are disciplines for becoming whole. Because the truth is, most people do not lose themselves in dramatic moments. They lose themselves slowly by being too reachable, too explainable, too absorbent, too forgiving, too willing to let others decide what they deserve. And Stoicism is the return to self-command, the return to clarity, the return to dignity. It teaches you that peace is not found by pleasing everyone. It is found when your inner world is no longer available for casual invasion. You do not have to become hard. You do not have to stop loving, stop caring, stop helping. You simply have to stop offering sacred parts of yourself to people who treat them like convenience. That is the shift. That is maturity. That is power. Because the strongest person in the room is not the loudest one, not the coldest one, not the most feared one. It is the one who knows exactly what will never again be taken from them. So from this day forward, pause before you answer. Pause before you explain. Pause before you absorb. Pause before you forgive another pattern just because it comes wrapped in sorrow. And ask yourself, does this protect my character or betray it? Does this honor my peace or slowly destroy it? Does this come from wisdom or from fear of disappointing someone? That question alone can change your life. If this message found you at the right time, take one moment today, just one, to choose yourself differently, not selfishly, wisely, not aggressively, calmly, not with anger, with clarity. Because once a person learns what should never be given away, they stop being easy to drain, and they become very difficult to defeat. If this spoke to something real inside you, write this in the comments. My peace is not up for negotiation. And if you're ready for more deep Stoic lessons on self-respect, discipline, silence, and inner strength, stay with this channel. Until next time, protect your mind, guard your energy, and walk through this world like someone who finally remembers their worth.